We are from Chittalayam, and today we'll be talking about stigma against mental health. So we have two people here. Can you guys introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Bhoshaga. I'm part of Chittalayam, social leader, and I take mental health very importantly. And I'm happy to share some of the things that I've learned along the way, and of course, some of the experiences that I've had the privilege to work with. And hoping to join a very productive discussion.
Vyaas?
Fantastic. So it's good to have someone new on the call. And my name is Vyaas. I completed my degree in biomedical engineering, and I'm always passionate to learn about civic service, mental health. And I was a part of an organization called CELD when I was in college. So they focus on public service. So this is my my contribution towards spreading awareness around these topics.
Thanks so much. And my name is Akshay. I will be the moderator for this video. So let's get into the discussion. So the first question is, how do India perceive mental health, and what are some stereotypes that come with it?
I can take that one, sure. Thanks, Akshay, for the question. So how does India perceive mental health? Now, everybody in general, right? Everybody is here with the mindset of surviving, when in fact, we're not here to survive, we're here to thrive. So when we take a look at mental health, especially in India, unfortunately, when the World Health Organization pushed its doors in, they did a little survey, approximately 7.5% of the entire population faces mental health criticism in one way or another. And that reflects in how their daily lives go upon. So for instance, some of the basic stereotypes that we see is difficulty in various kinds of age ranges. For kids, this comes in the form of not getting enough attention and love from their family, and that results them feeling sad and sluggish, and then they continue to do more sluggish activities, things like not getting involved in clubs and events, not making a lot of friends, and that just brings them downhill. And as they progress up towards the next age range, being teenagers and college students, with the additional burden of having their classes to go on to, mental health plays a very significant role in determining if they're going to succeed or if they're going to have a lot of upsets towards the career path and in the days to come. So definitely in India, mental health is perceived as a stigma. It is something that not many people would want to talk about, mainly because as you bring things out, it makes you feel even worse at times, or at the same time, it's hard to gain help. It's hard to reach out, especially towards people who know how to do the right things at the right time. And of course, we're talking about stereotypes. There's a lot of things to go into, but perhaps one of the most notable things is in terms of the culture, the oppressive cultures. Sometimes some things are not as open as we would like it to be. Certain things might be a bit difficult to bring out because you might be compared differently among your peers, and certain things you might not even know how to share, or how do you do self-help, how do you take care of yourself. So I think those are the biggest stereotypes, and those are the major points to bring out, especially when you want to push more mental health, more self-love into certain parts of India.
Thanks so much. Sorry. Thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive answer. Vyaas, do you have anything to add?
So I was a part of the discussion we had on gender in mental health, and we sort of had a similar intro when it comes to how it's seen in India versus other countries. So, and I mean, I don't have much to add to that answer, but I'd like to say that being seen as a stigma is harmful, and we're just going to explore areas on how it impacts society as a whole and individual people in this meeting.
For sure. And I don't personally have anything to add on the perception either. I think Bhoshaga covered it pretty clearly. A few things I would add with the stereotypes is people sometimes, like, people say these things which could come as a hurtful thing. So one of those things is, like, people who talk about mental health are doing it to get attention, and maybe the attention they need is like sort of like even when they're hurt, like, like when you hurt your leg, break a leg, then like you need attention for that. Just because they're seeking attention doesn't mean the attention is bad. Then sometimes they say all you need is love and prayers to tackle mental illnesses. Love is very important. Like prayer can be good too, but sometimes medical effort has to be done too, and so you do have to like take some extra steps. And sometimes, like, because of the stigmas, they say like people with mental illness are cuckoo or crazy, and that definitely doesn't help, because that plays an active role in bringing down people who want to talk about mental health and mental illnesses. And then there is a perception that people with mental illnesses are violent, whereas studies have shown that actually there are more violence done against people with mental illness than the people with the mental illness doing some violence. And then the final thing I can say is that like even with the people who do like learn about mental health to a certain extent, they sometimes think that only people without a mental illness have stigma against mental health, but that's not true. Even people who do have it, they might not have the awareness, and just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean you understand it completely. And sometimes because you're hurt, somebody might be in a different spectrum and might have the same thing, and you might not be able to empathize with them, and that might hurt you too. So there's a lot of stereotypes around mental illness, and talking about is the one way that I think that we can move forward and see whether something is true or not. To the next question, think about a time when you discussed a difficult topic with your parents. What difficulties did you face?
Ooh, difficult topic. Oh, this is a good one. I'll let Vyas take this one first.
Yeah, I just have a question. So is it are we specifically talking about difficult topics on mental health, or are we saying difficult topics to discuss in a family setting?
No, just a difficult topic to talk in a family setting, because this is a setup for another question.
Okay, so difficult topics, period. Doesn't have anything to do with mental health.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So there was this
Yes.
there was this one time I was discussing. So when the Charlie Hebdo attacks happened in 2012, I wanted to learn more about the what happened in France, why that shooting took place at the headquarters of that magazine center, and it was a difficult time for everyone, like not especially for the people in France, what identity means to them, and who is actually French, or are these people are the people coming in from other countries, how do we accept them, or what do we do with reconciling those differences. So I was understanding, so I got into learning more about the religion Islam. So I was trying to understand what the texts actually say and how it could be interpreted, things like that. So this happened when I was in Dubai. So a country where I don't know if it's if it's not it's the most liberal country in the Middle East compared to many others, like Saudi, but uh, it's still a bit it's still a that's still a gray area, talking about religion in that country. I was doing this in I was just doing research on my own, trying to understand what this means. So this is kind of a taboo topic to discuss, religion, especially Islam, for whatever reason. So I was trying to discuss all these. My parents were curious, and I was just learning more about these. And at one point, they actually, I don't know, they weren't they were very hesitant to talk about this. So that comes from a difference in mindset, or a difference in understanding of, just reading about something is not going to harm me. Like, it's not going to injure me. Like, reading about something is going to expand you, no matter how controversial, or has no meaning to it, even if it's a baseless lie. Just reading about it can let you understand what it means to identify a baseless lie. So I was just learning about all these, and that was a really controversial topic, or a difficult topic to discuss. idea of Islam, linking that with what free speech means, what actually happened, is that right? So that was a difficult topic.
Yeah, sorry, I was just curious a little bit. Say, you mentioned like when you were reading about it and then your parents got a bit worried. At what point did your parents like show that worried to you? Because I would assume in the beginning they were fine, they were chill
Yeah,
about it, and then
yeah,
suddenly you maybe
yeah.
did something, you got too deep, your browser um homepage turns out to be I don't know, some religious website or something. So did you
Yeah,
go through that deep, or what
yeah.
actually triggers that change?
That's a good question. So yeah, it's not. It's gonna. This question is gonna. Yeah, I don't want to go into detail. We can discuss it later.
Yeah, of
But the
course.
thing is, when I was able to, get a more than average understanding of what's in the Quran, or what does jihad mean? Or what do the people who have strong fundamentalist beliefs, what is their mindset like? Understanding those things. So when I started talking about those, they freaked out. So I was purely looking at it from like a understanding point of view, from like a rationalizing what they're trying to do, rationalizing the acts that they commit, however hard that might be. So that's when it got
Gotcha.
really bad. And they're like, stop it right now, you have your exams to focus. So I don't, just an incident from my life, so it's not something that I'm not trying to say it's bad that they did that, or it's just a conversation that I had. So but it was difficult. So conversations around religion are difficult.
Now we understand like how conversations can be difficult, and like what are some things that can affect you with, like, like in your story how your parents were hesitant. Um so like with uh, conversations around mental illnesses and mental health, are the people equipped to have mental health conversations? And if not, what is stopping them from having these conversations?
Yeah, no, great question. Um, I'll take this one. I had the privilege of founding a startup uh, about a year ago. It's called Shout, where we focused on collecting positive messages from people around the world. So this question clearly, I've got very good insights to share based on this. So we managed to collect about 10,000 messages from about 190 countries. And we did have tons of submissions from India, lots of different various parts of India too. And are people equipped to have this mental health conversations? I think given the opportunity, definitely yes. Based on the information, because people actually recorded themselves saying things how they felt about mental health, saying positive things to share on others. And the fact that when we reached out, we told them, hey, this is what we're doing. Are you willing to make a quick 10-15 second video to share your thoughts? And about 97% of them replied with a yes. And within the next 3 to 4 days, we got a video of them sharing. So I think definitely people are equipped, people are ready to share. So kudos to them, absolutely amazing things. However, sometimes they're not too sure about what could be the repercussions of it, or if there's any consequences to that. So what do I mean by this? Most of the people that send us this message, right, they tell us things like, hey, I'm not sure what's going to happen after this, but I'm willing to do this because I know how it's like to be there, and I want to help another individual. I want to raise them up. So that's the reason why I'm doing. So if people could understand that, hey, when you speak about a certain topic, it's not about you sharing about yourself in that particular mental state only, but it's about telling others that, hey, this is okay, and this is something that we all go through. And at some point in time, just like how ice boils at 100 degrees Celsius and melts at zero, at a certain point, just because we are at different temperatures, that does not mean we're not water. So by sharing these messages out, it helps people know that, hey, we are similar, we are equal. And just hearing all those different messages, you can imagine going through tons of messages from people, reading through a bunch of emails. It is clear that I believe that the young generation loves to help people. They want to see how to uplift others. So they're more certainly equipped to have this conversation. At least a large percentage of them are. Uh, and for those that do not have the chance, or for those who have certain limitations or restrictions. What is stopping them from having these conversations lie in my opinion, three big things. One being family, so the stigma against their family or the inability to speak up, it might tarnish their family's name. The second comes from values in terms of their upbringing. So sometimes when certain people are grown up in various kinds of upbringing, certain topics were not meant to be spoken out to. For instance, in Malaysia, conversations about LGBTQ plus is something that does not happen in a daily basis, and somewhat in India it's a little bit more open, but in Malaysia that is something to work on. So upbringing plays a very crucial role, and the third one lies in the opportunities that they get, because it's very easy, if something doesn't go well with the way you design your life, and for you to go down a turmoil, and then you feel like, hey, I just don't want to talk about this. So I think it comes from a fundamental of a core belief values. If somebody has a very strong fundamental core values, say I'm not feeling too good about this, I want to change my habit, then they pick up books to read about it. A lot of amazing book, Checklist Manifesto, the Atomic Habits by James Clear. All those are fantastic books. When the values is right, then it's very it's definitely not very easy, but it's certainly relatively much more simpler to speak out and to share these in the form of conversations. So yeah, family, upbringing, and core values incredibly important. And yes, significant majorities of those youth do have capacities to talk about this, which very proud. Yeah, Vyas, you want to add on anything to this one?
I just have a lot of follow-up questions on your startup shout.
Please
So,
go for it.
wait, so when you say you derived insights from those videos, like what does that look like? What were you looking for? What are the metrics that you wanted to analyze when you had the videos coming? You simply didn't want to just post the videos. Like that could just be random things that we see on Facebook or YouTube, or like what is something that different you wanted to do?
Absolutely, yeah. So while we believe that the amount of videos are important, we need to know other metrics too. Things like, hey, who is sending this, right? And so we took a list at where are all these videos coming from, and then we wanted to go a step further. What are their professions? Are they students? And the fact that, hey, we've got doctors sending in videos all the way from Egypt to Syria to Pakistan to China. Then we've got college students sending in their facts, and we've even had toddlers, sharing out their messages. So a bunch of toddlers, 6 to 10, we had to remind them, hey, you need to be above the age of 18 for us to even publish this videos. But they were like, we want to share our voice. So we said, okay, we're not going to limit that. We might, transcribe them into words for sure. So we had those metrics to take care about. We had grandmas, office workers, them coming in and sharing their point of life. And those were in terms of the people. But the next step we went into is what were the messages they're trying to say? Because as you're going across different age groups and different mental health topics, the messages change, right? As a college student, your message might be geared into, hey, take care of your sleep, take care of your sleep schedule, your work schedule, and don't push yourself too much. But for toddlers, it goes in a different way. It's like, hey, go out and play more, start drawing more. So when you look at this kind of array of data, you understand that mental health takes forms in so many different things. I'm sure you guys can relate to. We were all under quarantine. We wanted to go out. That's not possible. Then we had a whole ton of work to do. At least for me, I knew I was watching one sunset to another sunset, not knowing when the sunrise was in the middle because my sleep schedule was messed up. But yeah, those were the key metrics that we were looking into, and about 25%, which is a huge percentage, 25% of them went on to send us additional emails, follow-up emails, a week, 2 weeks, a month after that, asking, hey, is there anything else I could do? Can I make more videos? Can I share more about this? And a teacher actually shared it with her classroom for all the students to, she shared, hey, if you want to make a video, sure. But she shared that the importance of speaking it out, the importance of sharing and having these conversations. So those were some of the things that we managed to track down. Yes, I sense that you have another follow up, but
no, that's awesome. I just want to know So is there any way people can watch these videos? Like, do you have like a compilation of it or somewhere? Maybe you can put that in the comment section below the video.
Absolutely. I'll pop
Yeah,
in
we
the link.
post it on the description.
Yeah.
Below.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome.
So the next question is, how do you? So we've already discussed that people of different ages see mental health like very differently from like Bhoshaga's answer. So how do you make a person who has a negative perception of mental health come through to the other side? And so how do you do that with friends? How do you do that with parents? And what would you do differently with friends and your parents? So like, so it's a different target, right? So like you have to like talk to them differently, and you have to present your case to them differently. So what would you do differently with friends and parents?
Yeah, I can start. So, I mean, with friends, I mean, if we're talking, so when you say come through to the other side, like what does that mean? What's the other side?
So they have a negative perception, sort of thing where hey, like it's just in your head, get over it, or like something like that.
Okay.
So it could be because they were ignorant or they have lack of information, but for one case or the other, they basically don't believe in mental health. And so how do you get from there to actually like believing in mental health and taking care of themselves and seeing that hey, just because your leg is not hurt doesn't mean you're not hurt, because you could have like other mental issues that could be hindering your life.
Right.
Things like that.
Definitely. I mean, so I think I mentioned this like in one of the earlier videos. So kind of like having these conversations around these topics is kind of like building a bridge. So it's almost like a sense of, it's like a trust fall. Like if you're sharing something with someone, there's always the risk of them not validating, not acknowledging what you're thinking or your character or the things you share. So it's just, there's always an element of risk when it comes to trust and vulnerability. So, and in case of friends, maybe, I don't know, you may not feel as bad because, friends come and go. Like you can, maybe if your best friend or someone who you consider to be close doesn't acknowledge or, just dismisses when you share things like that. So that can be very difficult. But I think with parents, it's even more difficult than friends. So the amount of trust you place on parents, and if they're never willing to, at least talk about it or help you in some way or just dismiss it away, then it's very difficult. So with parents, the way you can maybe help is, it's hard. I don't know. With parents, I feel like, but there's always cases, but I feel like if someone's a parent already, they have, mostly they're sort of rigid in their mindset. Like they've seen things, they've experienced things. And even if a student, even if like a teen or, an adolescent shares things, it's something the parent probably has gone through. So it's not like they're new to this. Like it's not a new feeling. They might have wanted to express it to their parent, but that was never acknowledged. So that cycle repeats itself. So it's about breaking that cycle somehow. And I feel like, probably this generation after, that cycle, can slowly get broken down. So it's a slow process, I feel like. Yeah. Well, what do you think, Bhoshaga?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I like it, especially how you mentioned that sometimes parents might be rigid, they're fixed in their core beliefs, and it's hard to share things. I'd like to take a different approach, right? Let's build a situation where parents are the one who's having a mental health issue, or our friends are the ones who's having a mental health issue, and they don't acknowledge that. They think that, hey, this is not real, it's in my head. I should do something about it. But you know that, hey, this person is actually going through something, and you can't say, hey, I think you're going through something, because then they'll come back to you and they'll say, no, I'm fine. Stop talking to me this way, right? So those kind of situations are the worst, because the problem isn't acknowledged. In other cases, problem is acknowledged. It's there. You work towards it. when you don't acknowledge a problem, it creeps and it builds up. So in those cases, one strategy, at least that I found pretty helpful, is in terms of sharing examples. People don't like to be labeled as things. People don't like to be labeled as, they are this, they're that, they're facing this, because it does not make them feel good. So if you want to change character, if you want to put in a little spark, it's how Christopher Nolan would put in Inception. The idea is to give an example that'll make people feel a lot more relatable and a lot more filled with hope. I'll give you an example. So there was this one time where my mom, she had a lot of things going on with her life. She had to take care of me and my sister. Then we had our own relatives, and then she had a whole slew of things from work to get done, and her sleep schedule was not on point. So at that time, she had a lot of things going on, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, there's a lot of things going on." But being a parent, you don't want to show your child that you have a lot of things going on and that you can't keep things together. So you would deal with it on your own. So I looked at her and I knew that, okay, something's a bit off. So I had a chance at that moment to pick up a book, Promised Land by Barack Obama. And in that book, he shared about his life being the president. He had a lot of mental stress to take care of. He had a lot of mental issues. And what I shared with my mom is what he wrote on one of the chapters. He shared that Obama had a cigarette addiction, right? So he couldn't beat cigarettes, and he would usually smoke when he had a lot of stress going on his mind, big decisions to make. So I told my mom that this is what happened. And even when Obama was in office, there were at times he had to go out and he had to smoke, but he thought about his two daughters, Sasha and Malaya, and he thought about them going through their lives, and he wanted nothing but the best for them. So keeping them in mind versus his addictions, versus his stress, he was able to, have a much more clearer picture. If my family is fine, if his two beautiful daughters are amazing, then nothing else would come close to that. So having that as a baseline, he was able to pull through, and that was how he looked at his outlook in life. Coming back to my mom, when I shared this story, my mom looked at it in a different light. Oh, sure, there's a lot of things going on, but I'm grateful for some of the amazing things that I have, amazing kids, wonderful family, people to talk to, and help coming in so many different forms and ways. So that helped shift her perspective from being too worried and concerned about a few particular things, but to actually taking a step back and taking a breather, and then attacking the problem head on. So that is a small little thing that I would like to share. When you're dealing with people who don't acknowledge the problem, negative mind, or people who just don't want to bring that up, it's not because they do not want to share, but it's more than likely because they believe that they're still in control. So to tackle this issues of people who think they're in control is to bring up relatable examples, people who are in power, people who are in authority, notable people who are going through certain things. Think like a monk, Jay Shetty. So stuff like that, when you bring out examples, people realize, oh, okay, this is something that they're going through, somewhat similar, so I'm going to pull through in this way. So I think that's incredibly powerful, bringing out different experiences.
As a person with a mental illness, how do you ask for help? And so it's a sort of thing where they have a fear of discrimination, the fear of judgment. So they have to go past that somehow, and they have to ask people, and the people maybe they also have a stigma. So how do you ask for help? That's the first question. And the second question is, even when you don't have a mental illness, how do you share with other people, hey, if you have a mental illness and you want to talk to someone, I can be that person. Like, how do you share that with the person? So those are the two questions. How do you ask for help, and how do you let other people know that they can ask you for help?
Yeah, I'll tackle the second one first. How do you tell people that you are the person ready to listen? That is, people with mental health don't like to be judged. They don't want to be like how you pointed out, they're self-aware. So sometimes they need a person, right? And most of the times it has to be somebody they trust, deeply, like how Vyaas pointed out. It's a building bridge kind of process. It's a civil engineer, building bridges take time. So very important. So when you want to tell people, hey, I'm here to listen, that only comes through example. So once in a while, when you ping a friend, it's different saying, hey, I'm here to listen versus the action that tells people that you're ready to listen. So actions, things like, reaching out to people, friends once in a blue moon, letting them know, hey, I'm here. It's not enough. You have to go through weeks after weeks, maybe keeping in touch with people, sending in cards at times. People feel like, hey, okay, this person actually cares about me. So if there's anything, I'm going to share it to this person first. I've had, loads of experience. Sometimes some friends, I've no clue how, but I keep in touch some of the times. And they reach out to me, Bosh, I have this thing I'm going to talk about. And suddenly it doesn't seem as awkward because you've built that relationship. They know you, you know them. So it's fine. So that's until the second part. If you want to let people know that you're ready to listen, it starts with you making connections with them, not the other way around, because people need to build trust. For the first part, how do you reach out for help? If you take a look at that, so then you would be reaching out to those who you trust. But the question is not who do you reach out to help, but how do you reach out to, how do you reach out for help? You got to start small. You can't, because you don't know what the other person is having in their state of mind. If you're going to talk to someone professional, then great. But we're assuming that we're talking to friends and family, right? Start something small. Start with something easy. Hey, have you gone through a whole ton of exams? If you're taking like 21 credits, have you done something similar? And then the person says, yes, find a baseline to talk about and then go in. So I'm facing this. And what would you recommend? Or what do you think about this? If you go in date first, hey, I'm having issues with, I don't like the way I look, the way my voice sounds, for example, then it's a hit and miss. If the person trusts you, if you know the person well, they have your best interests, then they will bring you up. But if the person does not know how to acknowledge, the person does not know how to lead, then you might end up in a worse state than how you were originally were. So start small and then slowly build up. Yeah, Vyas, go for it, man.
I mean, that's an amazing example. So it's like the marketing strategy where you get your foot in the door, or you make that first contact. So and then you build up to bigger things. So and so that yeah, that's a great story you mentioned. It's hit or miss if you just if you just state point blank what you're going through. It's the first time. So so when I was in college, there was a time when I was in it was like a spring, it was like a service trip over Thanksgiving, and so there was a time when I was going through some stuff, and there was a person in that group. She had shared, as part of team bonding activities, the stuff that she's been through and what helped her. At that point, I wasn't ready to acknowledge what I was going through, so it was more of me blocking out those feelings, and that ended up that ended up making me go into a worse hole sort of idea. So about 2 years later, I sort of texted her saying, I've been going through some stuff, and what you said on that day was very helpful, and she was willing to talk to me and share some stuff, how it helped her. So like you said, things that you do in public can have an impact. I reached out to her 2 years later because it had an impact on me. So even this conversation we're having now, like what Bhoshaga, what you said about your mom, that could help someone, way into the future. So, and that's the great thing about internet. You never know what's gonna click with someone. So people might reach out to you after you saying shout, So that's the best thing, and that's how these connections form, and that's how you ask for help. And there's a lot of resources now. So I didn't ask for help right away. Then it took me a while, and so you got to reduce that time it takes for you to ask for help. And that happens slowly.
2 years. Yes, you're muted, man.
Yeah, it's a long time. I agree. So it takes a while, Yeah. There's people who spend lifetimes. So I'm at least happy that sort of I'm able to talk about all this stuff now. So yeah.
I'm happy for you, dude. At least the fact that if that one friend, she said something, and after 2 years it's something that you can remember. And now I'm curious how she must be an amazing person then, the way she brought things out, the way she talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, she's working with kind of AIDS, stopping the AIDS sort of in a society where she works with people who are on who face drug addiction and AIDS and other sort of issues. So she works like in the public sector right now in California. So she's an amazing person, and it's great that I was able to spend time with her and a bunch of other great people in that service break. So these sort of shared experiences help, where you can gauge who you can share stuff to. So yeah.
Good. I guess I both said very good points. I would just say, as Bhoshaga said, like the relationships are very important. You can only do it with the trusted fellows. So, like building the relationship, having enough people in your circle is very good. And the second thing is letting them know that like you are sort of like an ally with like mental health. So you can sort of like put a message, and like we're in the technology era now, so you can put on like your Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or a Snapchat story where you can say, hey, if there's anyone who wants help, you can say that. And then while not everybody would see it as, hey, he's just saying it just for fun, but the people who are in your circle, the trusted fellows, they will say, hey, if I need help, I know I can count on him and or her, depending on the since I'm a guy, I said that. So that is the way that I think we can move forward with this. And both of you have said like very good examples as well. So I don't have to go into that. In India, there's also a stigma, just like learning psychology. But to be honest, it's just like learning anything against engineering and commerce. But especially like into like learning psychology, there's a lot of stigma. So not even a lot of people go into that field. So what do you think there's a stigma there, and what can we do to like take that stigma off?
I'm not too professional in that topic, especially with the education industry in India. But what I do know, though, is one of the major contributing factors is the lack of resources towards mental health. In terms of funding, for instance, for every 100 people, the amount projected and collected for mental health funding is just about 33 paisa, which comes down to 0.4 US dollar cents. So perhaps having very little funding to go with it, that would discourage the job opportunities or the prospects of people. So that may have led to a huge stigma against going into psychology, going to helping people, especially with therapy and all, which is very different in different countries around the world. Here in the US, for instance, being a therapist can be very rewarding, provided you know how to do your job, right? So that, in terms of funding, it certainly plays a very huge role in determining if a person actually enrolls, if it has prospects. Vyaas, I'll let you add on to this one.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. You follow where the money goes. So if you don't create the right incentives for people to enter a field, that can discourage them. Maybe after 1 or 2 years, if they give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, they move to something else that's better in terms of providing food for their family. So, and I guess people are willing to talk about it a bit more, and it's slowly going to change. And I was just talking to friend. She's a psychologist now, so she finished her bachelor's and master's here in India, and I caught up with her after a long time. And she has a clinic in Huzur, which is a place where I lived for a few years here in India. So she started her own clinic, and and she has some really interesting ideas which I liked. I don't know if this is a part of your question. So she had this service where you could text. If you didn't want to talk to anyone, if you just wanted to vent your feelings through text, and she had a service like that, and along with video and online and offline visits with the psychologist. So there are these interesting things that are coming up. That's something that I never thought of. that's great actually. So that's what happens when it comes to suicide prevention hotlines as well. So there's places where you can call, and there's sometimes there are specific websites where you can just text and vent, and there's just people who are willing to listen, and they just say. And there's a time I've used that as well. I was at a place where I wanted to do that. So these things happen. So there are psychologists, who are coming up with these ideas and offering these services. So I'm hopeful. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's interesting to see where this goes.
These services definitely help.
Bhoshaga? Excuse me. I wanted to add on something when Akshay mentioned about actually having people text and sharing their thoughts in that way. From that, another important thing though is also education. There was this one study that was conducted by the Indian Journal of Psychiatry. This was done a couple of years back. They wanted to see if people were going to go into psychology and what are their thoughts on stigma against mental health. And what they did was they talked about schizophrenia. It's when people would hallucinate and they would think that things are there. It is real for them in their mind, but it's hard for people to understand because they don't see it. And normally seeing is believing, but sometimes when it's in your mind, that's what they believe, right? So anyway, the Indian Journal of Psychiatry, what they did was they reached out to a huge amount of respondents and asked them, what do you think about this? Do you believe in it? What are the stigma against it? And what they found was a lot of people who didn't believe in mental health, they did the data analysis from that. About 34% of them, of the respondents, they said that this is not real, and I'm not going to spend any time to deal with this issue, which is quite alarming at the time. And the average amount of education that they had was about 12.4 years. And versus the other side of the group, 56% of them agreed and was willing to help out. They understood the stigma behind it. They had an average about 34.7 years. So having a huge amount of education and pushing in society to learn more, to educate more in more urban settings would definitely help switch the stigma and to joining in psychology. And I'm pretty sure that's how we have all these amazing services, suicide hotlines and everything else booming and jumping in right now.
What you said is very, very true. With the education, it definitely plays a huge role, and especially it is a good time because I think last year there was new education policy, and I don't remember much of it, but I do remember it was welcoming to psychology and mental health and things like that. And I also see a rise in psychology classes in school because not all schools like in India don't really offer psychology as a subject that you can even study. So you might have to go to special schools. But I think that there is a rise in that. And of course, as both of you have said, these services are very, very helpful because by seeing these services, if people use it, then people can see that, hey, these services are helping me and I should probably go into that field too. Whereas I think one of the reasons why engineering is very popular is because they're able to see that engineering has played a role in their lives. Whereas because of the stigma, not a lot of people have gone to therapists or like psychologists. And so unless you come across it, you don't think of that field as one of the things that you want to pursue as well. So I think that definitely plays a role. And of course, like the biggest thing would be the funding. The government has to put more funds into this. And like, as you said, the 33 paisa like is that's a really bad thing. And I found like another one that said probably the same thing, but like India basically spent less than 1% of its total healthcare budget on mental health in 2017. And these things sort of like scare us because hopefully in 2020 there is a rise in the awareness of mental illness because of course like we were all in quarantine and that definitely hit us pretty bad. A lot of people needed the help, and so a lot of people also recognize the help. and we didn't have enough therapists, we didn't have enough psychologists. A lot of people at that point, it was not a problem of people not having the awareness to go to a therapist, but actually we didn't have enough therapists to go to. And so obviously in those times, online therapists, those sort of help, but we can definitely go one step higher in this. So basically there is a stigma against anxiety, and it's because people empathize with it, and it plays a role in them understanding what anxiety is a bit wrong. They understand what it means, but they don't understand the levels to it. So for a person with anxiety, like what can they do, and like how do you bring awareness to this issue?
Sure, I can go on that. Anxiety, incredibly important. I can share an experience that true experience actually happened. There's this once I was with a good group of friends. It was a good we had like a good 3 weeks. We were in a program where we were getting to know one another. It's about a 3-week program. And you know how it is, right? In programs, you meet a whole new bunch of new people, and then you have a good time, and then you connect with them. And at the end of about 1-2 weeks, you start building very, very close relationships. And towards the end of the 3rd week, pretty much they're more like family now. You know all about them, and the people you trust, the people that you can share, you can confide in. So that was what we had. I was with a group of friends, and we all understood each other. We were pretty close, sufficient to say, because we were spending pretty much the whole day, every day, for about 3 weeks. Towards the end, though, we had like a little farewell ceremony because everybody was going to leave their respective hometowns, their respective places. And one of my close friends, she was sharing about how things are a little bit different and back home, and then she had like a lot of things going on, and that she had found a new home here, and that she felt really loved, and she had a great time, and she didn't want to let these amazing moments to go to leave friends. Sure, we could keep in touch through text and through social, but it's different. So anyways, we decided, hey, let's all take a walk and to go down and to just spend some good time vibing. And as we were vibing, we were going around walking. I was walking alongside her. Suddenly, she just stopped. She froze. And I looked at her. I was like, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? And then she started shaking her hands. And at that time, I was like, okay, something's not right. And then I went to hold, and she couldn't breathe. She was like starting to have difficulty in breathing, and I felt like she was suffocating. So immediately we all panicked. We were walking, like we weren't walking as a close group, so everybody was in a different location, slightly far apart. I was the closest to her, so I immediately grabbed and made her sit down, and she couldn't breathe, and she was having an anxiety panic attack. So I didn't know what to do. I was shocked at the time. I was like looking around, hey, what do I do? And then I looked at her, I started calling her name. She was shaking, and then she was like, she couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what to do to get a hand. I immediately called up all my other friends, like, hey, look, guys, we have a situation here. Everybody came running, and she saw everybody running towards her, and that didn't help. And then she started becoming even more anxious. And to the point, somebody looked at the blue button we have a blue emergency button right around campus, and somebody hit onto that. And 30 seconds later, she was like, no, don't hit, I'm fine. And then that made her panic attack become even worse. And then the ambulance came, and the person suggested, hey, we need to take care of her. Let's not like surround her. It's a bit claustrophobic. Let's give her some space. Everyone gave her some space. And I, being the one that was closest to her, accompanied her into the ambulance, and she still couldn't breathe. They had to inject her with sedative for her to cool down. And 10-15 minutes later, I was explaining the scenario back to the nurse and staff on board of the ambulance, and then finally she cooled down, and it wasn't anything major, but she would get these kinds of anxious panic attacks whenever she feels something too strongly. So it's not something that has happened to me before. So I did not know how severe it could be. But being in that situation at that time, it suddenly opened up my eyes to how big of an issue an anxiety attack can be. It's not that she wanted, it just happened at that particular time moment. So eventually she shared that she was just too sad to be leaving us, and thinking about starting back life and missing a good circle of friends. That really made her really anxious. So actually, I'm not sure if this answered your question, but it definitely showed me the stigma against anxiety, stigma against panic attacks, and being there in a particular situation really changes the way you look at things. It changes, and you get to see how severe it can be and how dangerous it can be if you were alone at the time and if there isn't anyone to help you. So yeah, interesting experience.
No, this is a great. This is a very great answer because it allows a person, like the viewers who are watching this, to understand that. So when I said levels, you are like, hold my beer, like, and then you like, sort of said, hey, like, these are the levels there is to it. So it was a like great story, and hopefully, like, people sort of understood like how bad it can get, and like that's why there's a need for the increasing awareness that people want in India. Vyaas, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I haven't seen. Wait, so was that a panic attack or a seizure? Sometimes I get confused between the two, and I don't really know the difference. Can you throw some light on that, Bhoshaga?
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah.
So a seizure is when you start having nervous breakdowns, right? Like the nerves hit into you start it affects the brain a lot more, and then your hands start shaking in a much more severe state, I would say. So panic attack is also severe, but it falls through a slightly different category. It's more of a instant palpitation when your brain releases a lot of cortisol, you become a lot more stressed, and having a lot of anxiety build up. That's how it releases. I would say the key distinctions. I'm nowhere near an expert, but the key distinctions from the things that I've read through. A panic attack occurs instantly. A seizure is more of a medical condition. So it happens after strokes. It happens due to a key underlying medical condition. So while a panic attack can happen at any time, but it happens so sudden that you don't know how to deal with it. Your body starts pumping in extra blood pressure starts rising. You go into flight or fight mode. So that is how it attacks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to just get an idea of what I should do next time, or what I would do if I see someone getting a panic attack. So so that's the protocol, right? What you said, give them some space, and make sure you call out their name and try to see if they respond. So yeah, okay. Those are things that I would
don't make the mistake that we made. We were like crowding around, and she was like, "Oh, I need space." And also, even if they say they might not want help, she was like, "Don't call them. Don't call anyone. I'm fine." Right? Sometimes
you shouldn't listen to that. Yeah, that's bad advice. Listening to someone who needs help. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so what I was gonna say is, yeah, I mean it's difficult because there's no, if you're diagnosed with a disease or an illness, you know that you're going to live with it and you can plan for it. But with a panic attack, you just can't. There are sometimes you might feel sad and you just fine, the day goes on. But there are sometimes where you feel sad, because that didn't feel like a sad moment when Bhoshaga was narrating the story. It seemed like a serene moment when they were just walking through the thing. But that's the thing, that was a trigger for that person, and it just happened. So the unpreparedness surrounding a panic attack is what we should be mindful of.
So now we have come to the end. So like everyone share your closing thoughts from today's discussion, and then we can end the recording.
Yeah, sure. When mental health comes into light, right, it's usually hard to know what it is unless you've been there. It's hard to know how to deal with it unless you've helped someone. But most certainly, you know how to help people if you've been helped the right way before. So given the chance, if you have the opportunity to catch up with friends, if you have the chance to reach out to different people, always try to share the stuff that has helped you first, because it may help them too. Till this day, I still keep in touch with her, and just knowing that the sense of comfort. Okay, wow, so many things are happening, so be grateful of what you have, and don't look down on people who are going through things, because the fact that they are letting you know shows that they trust you, right? If you don't trust someone, you wouldn't tell them, hey, look, this is what I'm going through this. The fact that if somebody reaches out to you, that should tell you a lot about your relationship with them. Get into different states of mind. I'd like to end with one simple thing that has helped me throughout some of the best and worst moments, I should say ups and downs, being like the tides, is to listen lots of Tony Robbins, especially on YouTube, and reading his book. He has an idea of getting into a different state of mind. You know, if you're not feeling good, change your posture, change the way you think. Now, granted, these are not solutions to every single thing, but it has certainly stopped me from dwelling and spending endless of time going down one rabbit hole to another. So read up a bunch of podcasts, get into groups of friends and activities, or if you just can't, pick up a book, read, do whatever it takes. Just remember that environments are different. You know, not one single environment does not work with everybody else. It may help somebody, it may not. People can tell you, go reach out to a therapist, but maybe it's not your thing. For instance, an environment could be like hot water. If you put a potato into the hot water, it becomes soft. You put an egg, it becomes hard. Now, we don't know if you're a potato or if you're an egg, but what we do know is we can control our environment and see how it affects us.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna briefly mention about movies. So the movies, the way mental health is displayed in movies, and there are some pretty good movies that do a good job, like Beautiful Mind and Rain Man, which came out in 1988. And and when Akshay had sent me the list of questions, there was this one aspect about movies. So I wanted to get into that. So what movies does is, when it comes to mental health, they may not fully accurately display what a person with schizophrenia is going through, or what a person with an anxiety attack is going through, but at least it gets a conversation going. You at least sit around and talk about where the movie got it wrong, and that can help in bringing out conversations. So even maybe a bad movie can help, like with stereotypes, or you break those stereotypes, and that you rate that movie as trash because it was really bad at portraying mental health. So movies can play a role. So don't take too much from movies that doesn't fully reflect what a person is going through. So yeah, I wanted to just mention that.
So have these conversations with your friends, have these conversations with your parents. And as Bhoshaga said earlier, your parents might be going through something, and they may not be sharing it with you, and it might be affecting them. So don't just because they don't understand mental illness is important, don't just say, you know what, this is a lost cause. Have these conversations. Don't lose hope. Never give up. Thanks so much for joining this conversation. I learned a lot from both of your stories you guys share. By these stories, I hope people were able to relate to it, or at least understand that it happens, it exists. And to other people like who probably are not yet having these conversations, this could be the start. You could show this video to start the conversation.
Thanks for watching. For more discussions, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Also, make sure to like and comment more topics that you'd like to see us discuss. We'll see you next time.